There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so today we're going to go through plotting the visualizations on our dashboard and kind of going through the configuration steps as it pertains to some of the areas that we want to cover in terms of some decision making stories and just kind of a summary of different areas of the courses, the faculty, the students, so on and so forth. So what I did here is I started with creating just kind of some visualizations as it pertains to teachers, and then we'll work through that, students, and then some course details. To start with, what I did down here is I created one tab for teachers, one for students, and course details just by clicking the new page button and then labeling it simply as double clicking in there and calling that, or just labeling it however you see fit. And what I've done here is I've taken essentially the idea that I would like to see which teachers we have, what their salary would look like, and then some of the courses that are associated with them. What this will kind of help me do is understand how many teachers have, what classes are associated with, along with their salaries. Are they, one decision point can be, are they taking on more courses to teach? And perhaps the final decision is, are they, ready for a raise or something to that effect? Or budget constraints to another degree. Do we need to hire more teachers compared to how much that we have budgeted for salaries across the board? So as you can imagine, this is highly sensitive data that wouldn't be shared across the organization just to select few people. But what I usually start with, and I'm actually going to start over. What I usually start with is if you hover over the table section here and clicking into that, this kind of gets me started with the information that I want to start to visualize by first creating some of those, just to kind of see what the data looks like on this this dashboard. So clicked on table on the right hand side under faculty. It started with the ID and the first and last name. And feel free to add any of the other details, but I'm just going to include salary here. And what this does is it will kind of give me an opportunity to be able to filter by clicking on any of these names with the other visualizations that we have. And it helps me kind of configure, what data I'll need to start capturing. But to start with, we'll kind of go through this section here. So for tables, this is fairly straightforward. What values do I want to see in a table? And you should be able to click the drop-down area to kind of see the different configurations for the values. Meaning if I had multiple teachers listed here, or I'm sorry, the same teacher listed multiple times, and I wanted to summarize their salary, I could do so by clicking on the drop down here, and it provides it for you. But if I say don't summarize, as you can see, it removes that bottom layer and just gives you the raw data. If I wanted to choose average, it gives you that information here. obviously, you want to call out that this is the average, so that it's a little bit more helpful to read. Minimum, maximum. So it's kind of cool in terms of just being able to calculate this information for you. So if I leave it as summarized, a couple of these items here, cross-reporting, meaning you can tie this into another report. Keep all filters. This essentially means that if you click on these items, it allows you to filter into other visuals. If you turn it off, it just leaves it as kind of a standstill item here. The next section here is your formatting, and this is where you can stylize your visualizations. The one quick and easy trick to make it a little bit more modernized is to, I generally just go down to the shadow section, click on it, and it adds a little bit more to just a white canvas here. Go down through each of these sections. So if you're familiar with... I'm
sorry to interrupt, but I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, Dan, you're about 30 seconds ago, your audio went crunchy. I don't know a way to describe it, but your vocals aren't so clear anymore. It was kind of
sorry about
sudden.
that. Is that
hey
better?
There you go.
Yes,
much better.
much better. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Sorry, does that sound any better?
Perfect.
Crystal
Yes,
clear.
sounds great.
Sorry, my Bluetooth may have failed on me. Sorry, can you all hear me?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right, so just to kind of revisit some of the stuff, I'm sure I got cut off. So I was describing some just kind of quick formatting things that I generally do to make it look a little bit more modern. By clicking on the shadow button, I think adds quite a bit without having to do too much. But if anybody's familiar with XY positioning for web design, this is essentially what this does is if I were to go in here and I say the X position, which is left to right, and I want to say put it at the 0x position, it moves it all the way down this way. If I want to add 500, but as you can see, you can also drag and drop it and it'll move that for you. This is good for if you have multiple visualizations, keeping it on the same X axis or the same Y axis. Additionally, if you've got specific widths that you want to apply or consistency, you could do that as well here. For anything that might be accessibility related, you can enter an alternate text here. So faculty list. And what this does is, why did I spell that wrong? Sorry, it's it gives you the ability to just, if you hover over, if anybody does have any sort of accessibility tools, it tells you what this section of the report is. This maintain layer order, so we'll go through that here in a second when I add another visual, but it basically takes this item and keeps it in the same order that you put a visual on. So if I put on another visual here, as an example, if I were to do this. So I've got two visuals listed here. And if I go to view, and then selection, I can see all of the items that I have and what order they're in. So we'll jump back into that here in 1 second. But I'm going to click my visual again, click on the format. And just going through the remaining items here, style. You can select any one of these, kind of stylize your table, and these will kind of change as you pick different visualizations. Grid, you can make those changes. One of the things that this is useful for is if you have standard branding. So let's say that you wanted to create this report and then export it to clients, or just kind of an organizational wide report. This is where branding comes into play, and you can start associating your branding with these reports. So one of the things that Power BI does is it does embed some ability to search your own data. Some of these features are available to some of the visualizations, but not all of them. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to add in a visualization around salary. And what I started with was maybe a bar chart. I didn't necessarily like the way that it was coming across, and feel free to use what you all might think makes sense to you, but I was using it was a scatter chart. And to fill in the information here, we're going to select the different fields and start placing them in there. So if you just click on the checkbox, as you may have seen, it just starts to add them directly in there for you. Or you can drag and drop them into the section. So the legend is essentially how it breaks up the data for you. The x-axis, I'm going to move this FID to here. So faculty ID, and then the y-axis is going to be salary. And again, some of the automated components are, it gives you a different color for each faculty member. You can go in and change those by clicking on the format tab. And if you click on data colors, you can choose a different color for each legend item that you've got, or each access item, I should say. So that would be helpful if you have, let's say, different categorization. So let's say you've got faculty members that are science related versus history related. So that might be one way that you can correlate the colors with those two facility members. So then at least when you tell, when you explain this section, you're saying all yellow items here are for science related faculty members. To go in and keep it consistent, I'll place this here. And what we can start to adjust then is, let's say, our y-axis. Now it will do this for you automatically, but if, let's say, this is a pretty easy read on this table, so I can tell that Blaine is at 240. So if I wanted to cap that just to kind of reduce the size a little bit, I can do, just type this in, 250, and as you can see, it starts to adjust the salary ranges here. So if let's say that you only want to display or you want to kind of exasperate the idea that Blaine is making so much more than somebody else, you can certainly do that by, let's say, changing it to, let's say, 500,000, so I can reduce the visual here to show a little bit less of an impact. If I wanted to show more, of course, I would do the 245, and I can show a bigger impact as to this individual. So if you haven't noticed already, what this can do for you is show a larger impact or reduce the impact of that data by just adjusting it that way. Any questions on that part? Or thoughts, anything on that?
Well, that's just a good commentary on the effective scale, Dan. We haven't really, I don't think we've really talked about that except for briefly, and probably way back. But you know how they'll show a graph of the stock market activity sometimes, and it looks like we had, the crash of 1929, but the scale is really, 36,200 to 36,400. And we really only had a crash of 175 points or whatever, which relatively is nothing. If you showed the entire scale, it wouldn't even be perceivable. So yeah, that's the effects of like you said, making the data more impactful, showing more impact of the data. Good point.
Yeah, that was one of the things, ironically enough, at a course of mine that had nothing to do with analytics, but more to do with the critical thinking, essentially, and digging into what is this data actually telling me, or what is the information that I'm seeing actually telling me, and how much further can I go down to evaluate and research? Because at the surface, obviously, you can make it look, you can make this data look very different, even though it's the same information that you're pushing out. I'm just going to toggle through a couple of these things to just kind of show you how they start changing. Again, if I click bold, it bolds all of the items listed here. Sorry, we're still working in the y-axis, but you can adjust. So this title color, that just changes this area here. And then I believe, yeah, to kind of help describe it a little bit more, let's say that, these were percentages or something to that effect. Just adding some of the more details helps. Obviously, you don't want to have it too cluttered. Otherwise, it becomes a little bit more cumbersome to read for your viewers. All right, so then moving on, this kind of allows you to adjust again, make it a little bit more interactive. So kind of in the same format that we had statically assigned, the 250K, so on and so forth. You can adjust that by using this zoom slider. I'm going to turn that off. Again, we talked about data colors and shapes. Just kind of increase those visuals. So title. Once you start plotting that data in, it'll start to tell you or describe to you what this visualization is. So for now, it says salary by last name and the faculty ID. So salary by their last name and faculty ID. But if I wanted to change it to just say salary to simplify that, it changes that information up here. So if you were thinking that perhaps you wanted to add a text box above that to describe the specific visual, you don't necessarily have to do that for redundancy purposes. You could just apply that in the title field here. And then you have some Microsoft Word type adjustments that you can do, changing the header. And this is more for web-based stuff, but you can align that to the center, left, right, and change the text position, make it bold, so on and so forth. Background, again, this is just to kind of increase the visuals, color effects, and then if you had any branding specific areas, you can do that as well. This also might be helpful for, let's say that all of your visuals were white background, but this one is, let's say something less annoying, like this, for instance. It brings the focus into that specific visual. But for now, I'm going to leave it white. So some of the tips that I recall on this is just imagine leaving this report for somebody to review without having to explain to them what it is. Think of it that way and how you want to adjust the information you want to share in terms of you know, the details of each visualization, so that it helps them understand this, but again, without having to explain too much. All right, so we've got salary, we've got our table here. If I click on John, it'll show me, it'll filter out and just show me the single item for John. So, all right, we're going to move into some of the course details that are associated with each faculty member. So what I'm going to start with is a simple clustered chart here. And for my access area, I want to include the term of each course. So I'm going to start with the term, and it's going to add it here directly. And then I'm going to go to course section, and I'm going to start with just the course ID. And let's do that. So what I did was, so it automatically just kind of goes down the order. So if I move the course section ID and put it into values, it turns the items into a count, meaning if I hover over, let's say this, oh, sorry, I need to add some minor details here. So I'm going to use the course name by clicking on this guy here and selecting that. So as you can see, it kind of starts to adjust this for you. But so if I hover over this section, the term is fall 2006, the course names, Intro to Infosystems, and the count of the course are how many times was this course provided. So not necessarily, let's see if I can adjust this correctly. Here we go. All right, so Harold had done web-based systems, did intro to info systems, and also in summer 2007, programming in C++. Also, it adjusts the salary here to show specifically just how much he was making. But eventually what we'll want to go down is, I don't think our data kind of shows this here, but the adjusted year-over-year salary for Harold, it just kind of gives us a snapshot of this. But as you can imagine, if we had, from 2006 to 2007, or let's say until now, we can start to take some data captures around how much he was making every year, correlate it to perhaps the way that this specific university would do it is the increase of courses that he teaches allows for larger salary caps for him, if that makes sense. Any thoughts or questions on that? I'm going to now, if I wanted to split this up into, let's say, the term sections into kind of a four-way split, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this term description and move it down here to small multiples, which means it divides that up for me. And so it shows fall 2006, 7, so on and so forth, and then the courses that were taught during that time. And as you're kind of going through this, you may find that some of the data might change or might be different based off of how you have inputted the fields here for each of these areas. So additionally, what I place in here too is what might be helpful is the amount of students associated with the course. So I took the from the enrollment table and took the student ID and placed it in the access section, changed my visual. And if I highlight over, it says, let's see if this is accurate. So this is telling me on my axis here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 students for the fall 2006 taking Intro to Info Systems. So this tells me the SID is 5, or the student ID is number 5. This one should be 4, or I'm sorry, 3, 2, and 1. So for each student, this kind of displays it that way. So as you can tell, it takes some adjusting to kind of help tell this story a little bit better. So it instead of SID, perhaps it should be faculty ID here instead. Switch that around with oops. Here we go. So this one here tells me 2 different faculty members. And if I blow this up a little bit, and the count of courses. So for Harold provided the course twice for intro to info systems. So before we get into break, anybody having any trouble with this or any questions around any of these 3 visualizations?
Not at the moment. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. On the scatter plot, the like the dots are kind of going off the edge. Is there a way to fix that in the settings?
Yeah, we should be able to, if you go to plot and up there. So generally what I try to do is see what way that Power BI would do this for me. Otherwise, if I adjust to, let's say the FID is 8, let's say we had 100 faculty members, I maybe want to pad it with 120 as an example. So for this, I would say 10, and that kind of brings it in a little bit. So it's essentially just trying to give yourself a little bit of room to help with that.
It seemed to fix it when you said that the faculty ID was a categorical variable, which
Yep.
I believe would be accurate. And then you can fix that, the stuff being cut off at the bottom scale by fixing that scale like you did before.
There we go. So if we just remove if we just allow it to be auto on the y-axis for the x-axis, we change it to categorical. As you can see, however, it changed the order. So one way we can adjust that is seeing if we could do it here, but essentially we can click on the 3 dots, sort by either a last name, any 3 of these items. But if I do that, come on. No, it's not gonna like me.
Yeah, it's sorting by name, not by FID. Why is it ignoring you? You're clicking on FID, aren't you?
I am.
Huh.
Well, let's see. I'll have to dig into this one here in a moment. But I'm sorry to answer your question. Yeah, so if you hit the X or Y axis, you can start making those adjustments this way.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Well, we're about close to break. If nobody has anything, we can pick it back up in about 20 minutes.
Sure thing, Dan. Can you pause recording during the break?
Yep.
Oh. Yay.
There we go. All right, so we were working through the teachers part of the report, just collecting some data in terms of their salary and the associated course names. We're going to work on the student information next. But before I do that, I would like, well, I'm going to share what I started to piece together here, but just any thoughts on what we might want to find with student data. What I started with was what kind of courses they take. Any thoughts on what we might want to dig into in terms of student information?
Well, I tried to pull up the last name of their advisor using that relationship between the student table and the faculty table.
Sure.
You know, it's got the FID, and the way I did it, it did one of those whatever Cartesian joins. So I got the students in there more than one time with people that aren't really their advisor. So I don't know if it's in my relational model or if I just did the visualization wrong, but like in your table in the upper right hand corner of this tab, if you could add the last name of their faculty advisor, that
Yep.
That's one thing I tried to do, couldn't do it. Yeah, that's what it did to me, and I figured there's an easy way to fix it, but I didn't know what it was or why it's doing that. You know?
So the relationship we have going on here is so for each, so one student has many teachers. So Michael has Baines and Blanchard.
But he shouldn't. I'm pretty sure if you just go over to the data table, the student table should, if I remember correctly, the FID is their advisor. And I added Donald Walker and Dwight Eisenhower so that we would have some nulls so that I could show left and right outer joins in SQL. But yeah, the FID is their advisor, and they only have one. It's so the faculty table becomes like a lookup table to find out who their faculty advisor is.
All right, so let's go back. So Connolly. Just making sure we don't have any duplicate IDs for faculty. Nope, those should all be unique. All right, well, let's start over. I'm going to delete some of these and get rid of that.
But Dan, these guys know how much I like to stay on something that I've a track that I've prepared. So if it's giving you weirdness, don't you know what I mean?
Oh,
Don't
no,
let me
no
throw you
worries.
too far off track.
Nope. Actually wanted to go through part of this, right? And the reason why I start with the table first before the visual, because visuals like these graphs they'll certainly start populating data, but difficult to tell if it's accurate before you start here. So
yeah, I was going to ask you, is that like a standard best practice to create the data table and then click on a different visualization to make it use the data that you've sanity checked in a table?
yeah, one of the things I didn't cover yet was something called slicers, and they're basically your filtering tool set. So that would be this piece here, and this allows you to say, let's go with, since we're working on students, I'm going to put the student ID in this field here. And why is it doing that? Okay, so I think we can change this around, but essentially the slicer is saying, okay, just show me items 1 through 4, and then starts filtering it this way. I kind of prefer the table to help me filter instead of this, because if we start putting the visualizations, I'm just going to put something. Oh, sorry. Something random in here with. And yeah, so this slicer is great to kind of help you, again, start filtering out some of that data. But if I click on these, this gives me a little bit more detail and does kind of the same effect. So that's why I start with the table, because it gives me a better understanding of what information I'm pulling in and then how it will adjust to that. Best practice, I will say that that's generally how I start with. You obviously don't have to do this here. You can certainly use this tool feature to kind of gauge the information there, and then also the CRD to kind of help map some of that. One thing that to be cautious of course, is if you're using this as your driving factor across all visuals and you decide just to make graphs on your page and you're using this to kind of drive all of that data, it may start to break those connections in terms of filtering goes. But I generally like to have some layer of data in my reporting. So if we dig in here, I'm gonna remove this for a second. And this is telling me, show me, let's start with FID. So in terms of the last name, I'm not really sure why that's the case. But if we start with the FID, at least we can pull in, you know, some more accurate data there. So if I start with that and then associate it with the faculty last name. It must be trying to join in by I'm gonna guess there's some hidden feature here that's connecting the teachers with the class and the students. So I think Blanchard, if I recall. And let's do that. Actually, let's just jump in here. Course section, more courses. Course section. Yeah, that's a strange one. Something, again, I think this might have something to do with how this table is trying to merge those two data points through some proxy, which might be the course or the course enrollment piece.
Yeah, it could be enrollment, but yeah, I sure thought when I clicked on faculty last name after having clicked on it in the student table, it would have, I mean, because the relationship seems to be modeled correctly between student and faculty, one to many.
Yep.
Yeah, students have one advisor, but you can advise many students. So, yeah, like I said, these, and I've said this about every piece of software we've discussed in this course. You know, it should work, and you know that it can do something, but sometimes getting the thing to behave correctly can be pretty frustrating. So yeah, Dan, don't let me knock you off on that one, but that is frustrating. You'd think it would automatically pick that right up, since it's modeled appropriately.
Right, right. It's I think one thing that I might consider, well, no, you shouldn't have to. I was going to say just include the faculty last name here, but because you're making this relationship, you shouldn't have to do that. It should pull in that data. All right, so we'll leave it like this for a second. And then I want to pull in the course information for the students. So I'm going to go, because I'm not terribly familiar with this, I'm going to start with the enrollment because I see that there's a direct connection there. Sometimes you might find somebody just kind of provides you that data without, you know, much understanding. So you may have to kind of go back and forth between each of these sections. So we had enrollment. So if I wanted to show this here, this is the tree map. We'll stick with this for a second. All right, so I'm going to select these three. Probably better if I just do all right. So this kind of gives me just each class. And we've got some duplicates here, but essentially what it's the amount of students associated with each class is, I believe, what it's showing me under let's try this. Yeah. So a couple of things to take note. The detail section, if I remove that, it's going to remove the course name, but it's grouped by the course section ID. So you can include, let's say this is the call ID and the details that shorten that up. But I am starting to combine a couple of these different tables together. So, so course section ID. Let's do. So I'm going to add in the course section days that are associated. When you do this, a couple of these visuals have the ability to add more than one item here. What will happen is you'll see these arrows start to pop up. By clicking on that, it starts to manipulate this data a little bit further down. So essentially what you're doing is kind of digging into the next layer that you've got associated here. So if I wanted to start with the course section IDs, and the details I'm pulling in are just the course ID numbers or alphanumeric numbers. Then if I want to go down to the section, the course section days, I'm going to click on those double arrows, and then it'll show me on Thursday, this course comes up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm sorry, that Yeah, that should be Tuesday, Thursday, sorry. So for all week, these 3 courses are available. And we'll kind of dig into that for course details, but I just wanted to show you this kind of cool second layer that you can start to filter specifically on these sections here. It makes it a little bit more interactive for your user base. All right. So we've got the courses, student table. I want to just make some adjustments to this title. We call that courses. The next piece I wanted to start pulling in is, I think we have grades associated with the enrollment. So if we take a look at that table really quick, we have the student, the courses they're enrolled in, and then the grades that they have outputted. I think the GPA was just a static item, but we can probably do some calculations in there too if we had that. Multiple different credits and however they calculate the GPA. I never really understood it, but let's put in I'm going to do clustered bar chart. And for the x-axis, we're going to start with let's try grade. And then legend's going to be maybe doing this wrong. Okay. So I started with the bar chart. I added the course name. The legend, we're using just the call IDs. And then the values, we're going to try to do some work here on the kind of information that we're outputting, because all it's doing right now is collecting the amount of times that a grade has been applied to intro information system. So it's been applied 7 times, but that doesn't really tell us anything other than a grade has been provided. So it gets a little bit tricky, but one of the items that you can use is this new quick measure. And it allows you to start doing some calculations specifically for those specific fields. So if I wanted to gives you kind of some templated items. I'm just going to mess with this and see what kind of information it shows. All right, so here's where some of the Power Query comes back in, some of the Excel coding. This is where you can start coding specifically for those values, for those visuals in this space. what I was trying to do is just output the A values and for each course. So I may have to kind of run through a couple of configuration steps here, so bear with me. Now, while I'm doing this, feel free to ask any questions. If you're creating a different kind of report, definitely interested in hearing what you're all coming up with. This also might not be the best chart to use for this. So let's see.
Can you go through the list of call ID again, please? How you did that?
Sure. All right, so in this specific visual, actually what I'll do here is on this table, I'm going to, well, let's see what kind of, yeah, it duplicates that too. So, sorry. If I click on here and I go back to this section, so I'm grouping all of my courses by the section ID, but the details it's going to show are the call ID. So if I were to switch that with, let's say course name, it would show me course name instead. Is that what you were asking?
Well, no, under how, go down just a little bit where it says list of call ID. I don't know how to get to that. Under course on the right side with the
Under-
checks,
Oh, course
list of call ID.
list of call ID.
Yeah, that's not an option for me.
Gotcha. So to start with, if you click on refresh data,
Mhm.
Does that show up?
One second, it's loading. No, it didn't.
Oh, sorry. So this comes up as a result of if you wanted to manipulate or calculate those values for a specific visual. So what I did is I'm going to pick a different one here. I started with this clustered bar chart, and in values, I added call ID, and then it's given me the count. But if I hit the drop down, I click on new quick measure. And in this calculation drop down, I scroll all the way to the bottom. You see concatenated list of values. And
Okay.
just 3.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so what I was going to try to do here is say for Michael, if I click on his name and this course, what I was trying to do is just filter and show me the grade that he received for this specific course. Definitely will take any thoughts on getting this coordinated. It's kind of a, how is this data connected is usually where I start to run into some thinking through this scenarios. So again, this is kind of how using the table kind of helps me. So if I click on Sarah and I've got a table here with the information I'm at least trying to pull, starting with the table, I can start to dig in a little bit more into creating those connections. And it's all just a result of me being more of a visual thinker. I'm sure that for different people, it might make sense just to look at tables and understand that a little bit more clearly. I just need to be able to see how it's sort of connected from the visual perspective as opposed to kind of like this data table perspective, if that makes sense. If anybody solves it, certainly let me know. So what I'm trying to accomplish here is if I click on a student, I want to see the grade that they have received for the course that they took. So just a little bit of an exercise. I'm going to continue on with this. Feel free to work through that. I will give you a virtual high five if we can get that solved, but I'm going to work through this right now. Let me know if you have any questions.
I found something online about editing interactions.
How so?
So they're saying like for the second table, go to format, edit interactions, and click the Ghostbuster icon on the first table. And I guess that should provide some sort of dialog box that will allow you to. So I guess to put it more generally, what we're wanting to do is when you click on one fill, you show the value of another.
Mhm.
Yeah. That seems to be.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. I think what I was needing to do is add another connection there. So yeah, I think what you're describing is kind of like if you click on any of these students, I'll need to double check this to make sure that's accurate, but so I click on Ruben, and then Ruben shows all the courses he took, and then the grade that was given to him. I'm gonna try to add we'll see if I have any luck with the faculty member. If I click on okay. So here I clicked on Sarah. I've got the grade associated with the class and the faculty members' last name. So Don, I think what we were trying to add here in this table, I think that's where we were running into duplicates, and it's because although it should say for each faculty member here, all the students associated with it, it looks like, at least from a Power BI perspective, it wants to integrate with at least a course section or
Arg.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that relationship, but now that you show it, arg. Okay. I assume that's fixable if you know which 9 mouse clicks it takes to.
Right. I think it's oh. Start here. So we've got student.
But for me, I mean, I only clicked on student and faculty, Dan, and it was doing that duplicate thing. I mean, I guess it sees that relationship automatically. But I just created a table with, student last name, and then I clicked on faculty last name, and it instantly came up with that Cartesian join thing without even telling it I wanted to deal with enrollment.
Yeah, that's I'd have to dig into that one a little bit more to kind of understand how or why. Yeah, as you said, kind of any of these tools can be a little bit finicky sometimes. To that point, I was working with a different Microsoft service and went through the same steps I've always gone through, but it didn't work, and ultimately was removing some controls and reapplying them, and everything works. So it's kind of the equivalent of rebooting or turning off, turning back on. So sometimes that might be the case here. Hopefully not, because obviously you've got a lot of data, but yeah, that one's that's a weird one. All right, so I'm just trying to find the best visual to show just specifically the grade. Although it might just be a table that makes sense, but one thing I did want to get through or show. Let's see if I can get this one to work. So this one's kind of a new one. It's key influencers. And this if we start with, let's say grade. I'm going to try to blow this up. So it has a little bit of AI integrated with it. So what influences grade that we applied here to be these values? So we want to explain it by, let's say, course name. So it starts to try to create those details for you. And then the idea is that it'll start to populate from a trending capacity, the most influential piece of data that then goes all the way down to the least influential piece. So just gonna mess with some of this data to see if I can get that to showcase. So this tool, kind of neat because it kind of helps you understand the data a little bit as well too. So what I did was I wanted to analyze grades and show what influences grade to be a B when the course ID is, obviously this is more of a numerical value, but for course ID 9, the likelihood of grade being increased being B increases by infinity. So not necessarily the best information, but I did wanted to show that this is kind of a cool tool that provides you a little bit of analytical information. Obviously we need to be able to input the right data here. But it gives you kind of its own reporting and tool as it does its own calculations. All right, I'm going to get rid of this one for now. Sorry, I'm going in a tangent here. So we've got grade, we've got students, the list of students, the courses that they're taking, and the grades provided with the facility, or I'm sorry, the faculty member. So there's a quick student report. And then in terms of the course details, we'll continue on to that one next, but was everybody at least able to get some of this data populated, at least from the student and then the course information associated with those students? If not, let me know. Otherwise, we can take another 15-minute break here and then finish up with the course detail section.
Okay, Dan. So back at 1/2 past again?
Yep.
Okay, 30 past the hour, we'll reconvene, and I won't make it through that whole hour, but that's okay.
Okay.
Like I said, it's recording to the cloud, so
All right, before I jump into this, anybody have any questions about any of the reports we're creating or Power BI in general?
Not yet.
All right. Okay, so in terms of course detail, I'm gonna work through or look through some of the tables that we have. So we've got the course information, course name, credits, any prerequisites, the course section. So this looks to tie in the specifics around when the course is going to be provided, which professors associated with it, items like the maximum enrollment, and then the term ID, which is essentially what semester this would be associated with. So we're going to try to create essentially a pretty detailed map. And by map, I just mean kind of this into a visual format of the course. This would be, let's just say, for example, it could be something for students to be able to review just the information and details on the courses. So again, to start with, since we've got 3 tables that probably will provide a lot of detail for specific areas of a course, what I would probably do is just take one centralized one, which appears to maybe be the course section. And then we'll kind of disperse that out for each of these other areas. So that said, I'm going to start with course section. I'm going to take the course ID, course section ID, the course name, and then I'll just start with the days that are provided. And maybe I'll throw one more in there, which would be the, let's start with location, building code, see what we come up with there. Okay, so no duplicate like we did with the faculty members. All right, so here I'm gonna start with the, let's see what kind of visuals we got. I wanted to call this out too. So you've got your standard visuals here. I may have called this out before, but if I click on get more visuals, again, we can start to pull in some of these templates. I'm going to try to find something we don't necessarily have to pay for. So I'm going to take a guess and try that one. Just to reiterate the steps. So I clicked on more visuals. This came up. This window popped up. I typed in calendar. And I'm going to click on calendar by Talon. I'm going to add. And for the term, let's see if we can get this to work. All right, so for this specific one, it looks like it's just kind of a standard output of details. So this is based off, of course, each semester. We can dig in a little bit, but in terms of filtering, it looks like we'd have to try to configure this a little bit further. So that's one of the things about these external templates is they're not fully fledged out. Might try just one more and see if I can find a better example of that. Let's try this one. Yeah. All right, that's not going to work the way I want it to. Anyway, this is kind of cool. You can put calendars on, and then of course click on the date and then show the courses associated with it. I think our data doesn't necessarily have start and end dates, and I don't know. You'd have to pick it from a column. You can't necessarily just type it in, which would be a cool added feature, but to be able to get this going, we'd probably go into term, add another 2 columns for start and end date, and then kind of go from there. But that said, I'm going to skip this one. And let's say we have not used pie chart yet. And I think I want to display location and how many classes are in a specific building. So as we can kind of see that here with, looks like the business building is probably the most populated, which would in turn probably tell us, or can help tell us a couple of things. If we had more details about this building, let's say classrooms within the building, if it's at capacity or if it might happen to be the largest building, so on and so forth. If there was an address associated with that location, we can map that out for students to be able to see. So for now, I'm going to add this building code into the legend. And then I'm going to associate that with, let's try course. Yeah. There we go. Might be better if we do that. Oh, right. Sorry, we've only got 2 of these listed here, but so what I did was I took the course section and populated the values with that, and additional details that we want to include is, let's see if we can do course section day. So it kind of broke that up a little bit further. So obviously we only have 2 buildings, but for the entire week, this is the courses associated with, we have 2 courses associated with it the entire week. For Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have 3 courses, so on and so forth. If we had more courses or more buildings, I think that would be a little bit more telling of how many, something kind of like how many classes associated with the building might indicate that it's the larger of the buildings. See, we don't have a lot of calculated data, so some of these like line charts or progressive charts, I should say, make it a little bit difficult to showcase that, but let's see what we get. I'm just going to click through a couple of these and see if there's any that kind of help us. All right, nothing terribly useful. So in that case, I'm just going to, so I selected next to that standard table one, there's something called matrix. And it just cross-references your data and starts to populate those totals for you. So for the business building, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there's 2 courses total for the entire week. 3 classes are assigned to these buildings. Let's go with another section for enrollment. All right, so we know what the student chart we had for each student. Here are the grades associated with that student per class. This might be more of a, let's see what kind of courses we get. I'm going to remove grade from it. Which students are associated with the class. Let's see if it can. Yep, it shows us the day. So one of the things about this data is we can certainly show when these classes were taken. If we had a little bit more date stamp, we can obviously show more progressive data in terms of back in 2006, these many courses were taken. 2007, so on and so forth. So we can kind of show some trend lines if we had specific data set or date items here, as opposed to just a text that says fall 2006, but I can try to showcase that here. So let's do the line chart. Our access is going to be our term. Legend is going to be our course ID. Then values we want are count of enrollments. All right, so here's something that at least you can kind of see how some of these items can show some sort of trajectory. I don't know how clean of a story this would be, but essentially summer, oh, and it's backwards. So we're going from fall to summer. So let's reorder that. I'm clicking on 3 dots and sort by ascending. There we go. So in fall 2006, there were 5 students total enrolled into 2 courses. And this one specifically, programming C++, there was only 1 student enrolled. And then for 2007, there were 2 students enrolled for programming C++, and then summer 2007, 3 students. So this would give us a little bit of, okay, intrigue into what's the next step here? Why is it that it grew? So then we start to kind of dig into some of that data. If there's anything telling that we can then expose in another visual. So ideally what might happen is if I were to put this here on this report, top left corner. So from a design perspective, one of the tips that I picked up along the way in terms of web design and reporting is a person's visuals will look like a Z. So they'll start from the left to the right, across down, and then left to right again at the bottom. Meaning if you're trying to tell this story, if you wanted to start with, well, here's the growth of programming C++ across 3 semesters. The next question is, why would that be the case? And we'd want to add a visual on this side to show any relevant data that pertains to this previous chart. So perhaps we can share, if we're trying to tell a story around the associated professors with each course, or maybe there was only 1 programming C++ available for Tuesday, Thursday, but then they increased that to some other days, or changed it around, or added some more days, whatever the case may be. We would add that here. So let's see, one item we can place in here would be
Hey, Dan.
Yep.
I'm going to jump. Like I said, you should be in full control, and the meeting's only scheduled from noon to 12:30 Eastern. So I should be back after your next break.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. I'll see you guys in a little bit.
All right. So we wanted to go from try to understand why there was the growth of or the popularity of programming in C++. Obviously, if we're focusing on one specific course, some of this other data may be overlooked. And what you can do for this one is under the formatting section of this specific visual, the data colors, if I just wanted to highlight programming or C++, I should say, I'm going to change these others to be grayed out. So they're still there. They're still kind of a more background type scenario, but this essentially highlights a specific data point from without having to interact with it. Okay, so we're focusing on C++, and we want to perhaps identify the associated faculty for those courses. And we want to do this in a bar chart. So if I do we'll start with course name. Sorry, under values. And then I'm going to place I'm going to start with just a faculty ID. Any thoughts on how I can get this to populate the faculty members specifically, and if there's any information I should be able to share here? Oh, by the way, what I just did was I accidentally deleted some of these because I was in the wrong visual. Top left corner, you can undo those so it can get back any of the changes you made. All right. So what I have here, this horizontal bar chart is essentially, I started with the professor's last name, so to be displayed here. And I want to see how many students have enrolled from this table here per course, which is our legend. So it's telling us through color schema which courses are listed here, and then if we highlight over or obviously look at the numbers down here, how many students were associated per professor. So again, for C++, if I click on the specific item here, Williams was the professor and the one student signed up. If I click on for spring 2007, same professor, 2 students have signed up. In 2007, let's see. All right, so for 2007, we had Professor Baines, 3 students for 2007. And what might be a result of the increase of days as a result of people signing up for those courses. So yeah, here we had Tuesday, Thursday only. And for, come on. For 2007, there was an increase of class availability along with a different professor for that time. So digging in a little bit more would kind of start to paint a better picture as to was it a result of increased days or was it a result of the professor that was associated with the class. So one of the things we can surface up next would be something like the grades that that students had received for each of these courses. Any questions, any of these? I'll let you all kind of create a report on your own and then help answer any questions, but just based off of this, just to reiterate, interrupt me if you have any questions, but so our first section, we want to understand who our teachers were. The second section is students and what grades they received for the courses they took. And then the third was just some course details, how many students signed up throughout each semester. And so the way that we were kind of describing this story, which is more students signed up throughout the semesters, instead of recreating that, as I described here, like we can create another visual to kind of talk about, you know, the grades associated with the students or the professor details. I believe. Oh, it doesn't cross over entirely. What I was going to say is you can identify this data and then revert back to leveraging what you've already created here, just to kind of help navigate a little bit more easily. So if I wanted to go with the professor, the students, I'm sorry, the number of students for the courses. And then from a student perspective, I can change this around to show me, should be able to show me all items that were, or all grades for, let's say, this class. Gives me the course name, obviously the grade, and then the student associated with it here, but we can change this around to show the course and then the grades associated with those courses. So some of it might be a little bit redundant, but consider each of these sections a different chapter of an overall story you're trying to tell. So progressively sharing, we're starting with teachers, we're talking about students, and then ending with the course data. So as you kind of create these and then talk through this, that would be one way that you can go about doing that. So I'm gonna pause. I'll let you kind of dig in, reach out if you have any questions. One thing, if you want to work on, is building this this report out a little bit further to maybe share why that more students had been associated with this specific C++ class. I'm gonna stop recording here too, and then pick up in a little bit.